Democratic Whip.
Are we on a quorum call?
We are.
Ask unanimous consent the quorum call be suspended.
Without objection.
Mr. President, in the first few months of this administration, we witnessed unprecedented, unacceptable attacks on the federal judiciary by President Trump and his allies. In one particular egregious example, President Trump demanded the impeachment of a federal judge who ruled against the administration. And President Trump said this man was a radical left lunatic, a troublemaker, and an agitator. That is a direct, specific quote from the President of the United States about a sitting federal judge. On Memorial Day, President Trump referred to members of the bench as, quote, USA-hating judges, close quote, and, quote, monsters who want our country to go to hell, close quote. Direct quote from the President of the United States about sitting federal judges. This kind of reckless, inflammatory language is part of the President's ongoing attempt to intimidate the federal judiciary. We're supposed to take this as acceptable conduct. It should be condemned by all political leaders, regardless of your political party. But my Republican colleagues have said nothing in response to these attacks on federal judges. It is the silence of the lambs. In April, one of my Republican colleagues had the courage to say out loud why Republicans are not speaking up. As she put it, quote, we are all afraid. Their fear is simply emboldening this president. Last month, President Trump was asked if he needs to uphold the Constitution. In response, he said, and I quote, I don't know. It was shocking to hear that response from the president, even this president. And it demonstrates just how little regard he has for our fundamental rights and our Constitution. Yet my Republican colleagues are silent. Their unwillingness to speak truth to power calls to mind a line from A Man for All Seasons. When statesmen forsake their own private conscience for the sake of their public duties, they lead their country by a sharp route to chaos. The American people have already seen and suffered through the chaos that has come from the silence of our elected officials. And so long as they fail to speak up, the chaos and lawlessness will continue. It's not only President Trump who is intimidating judges and attacking judicial independence. House Republicans are acting as accomplices, filing articles of impeachment against 6 federal judges simply because they ruled against President Trump. House Republicans have continued their attack on the judiciary with their reconciliation bill they passed last month. Buried in this 1,000-page bill is a provision that would strip federal courts of their ability to enforce a contempt citation when a party fails to comply with certain types of injunctions. The contempt power is integral to the authority of the federal courts. Without the contempt power, parties could simply disregard court orders. Currently, Trump administration officials know that if they violate court orders, they can be held in contempt and subject to fines, or even jail time. But President Trump doesn't want the courts or anyone else to stand in his way. And that led House Republicans to advance a provision prohibiting courts from enforcing some contempt citations. This would let President Trump pursue his agenda without any concern of being held accountable in the courts. And it would prevent courts from enforcing contempt citations in all manner of cases, whether the injunction issues today, tomorrow, or even 10 years ago. Maybe House Republicans thought no one would notice this provision. Maybe they thought nobody would have the nerve to oppose the president. But I can tell you the Senate Democrats read the provision. We noticed it. We spoke out against it all week, and we will do everything in our power to ensure it does not become law. The attacks on the judiciary not only threaten our Constitution, they threaten the judges and their families themselves. Recent reporting has revealed a dramatic spike in threats against judges. Between the beginning of March and the end of May, 197 federal judges were threatened. Judges and their families have received threats in the form of anonymous pizza deliveries to their homes. These deliveries are meant to show that the perpetrator knows exactly where the judges and their families live. So far, more than 100 pizzas have been delivered to more than a dozen judges and their relatives. It's not a laughing matter. At least 20 of these deliveries were made using the name of Judge Esther Salas' son, Daniel Anderl, who was murdered at his family's home by a former litigant. Even Justice Amy Coney Barrett's family has been reportedly receiving unsolicited pizza deliveries. Whether I agree with these judges when it comes to their philosophy is beside the point. This is frightening. Judge Salas herself has characterized the deliveries as psychological warfare that send the message, quote, "Do you want to end up like Judge Salas? Do you want to end up like Daniel?" These incidents are sickening. They threaten not only judges and their families, but also judicial independence and the rule of law. They must be investigated and they must be stopped. Over a month ago, as ranking member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, I sent a letter to Attorney General Pam Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel. I asked them to investigate the deliveries and other threats against federal judges and to provide information on steps they've taken to protect these judges and their families. I have yet to receive a response. On Tuesday, I sent another letter urging them once again to investigate these threats against judges and highlighting the need for action. The federal judiciary and our government can wait no longer. Last week, I met with 3 federal judges to discuss judicial security. Judge Salas was among them. Her experience is a reminder of how important judicial security is and how much is at stake. Our meeting also served as a reminder of how our judges have shown tremendous courage in the face of these ongoing threats. We should all be grateful for their public service and their willingness to don black robes and act without fear or favor. We should also be grateful for the law enforcement officials protecting our judges. But it's not enough to merely acknowledge and appreciate the courage and dedication of our judges and law enforcement. The Justice Department and the FBI must investigate and must act now. The President and his allies must stop these attempts to intimidate a co-equal branch of government. And congressional Republicans need to step up publicly and stand behind these judges. In the meantime, I'll continue to stand up for the judiciary and highlight the need to protect our judges. And I'll continue to stand against those who threaten our judges and the rule of law, whether from the right or the left. I hope my Republican colleagues will find their voices and join me. Mr. President, I yield the floor and suggest the absence of quorum.